Hello, everyone. Today we'll be discussing section 2.1, applications of 2 by 2 systems of linear equations. In this video, we'll be going over the process you use to solve those word problems, and we'll create a template to help you write those two equations. All right, let's go. First of all, here's the 4-step process. You define your variables. Then you write the amount and value equation. That's what we're going to focus on in this video. Then you solve by using substitution or elimination. And finally, you state the solution with the correct units. We're working on word problems in the real world. We're not talking about X and Y anymore. We're talking about chocolate and peanuts, or nickels and dimes, or a 35% acidic solution and a 25% acidic solution. We're talking about real world things. And so when you state your solution, don't tell me X is 20. Tell me, I need 20 pounds of chocolate for my new trail mix. Okay, step 1, define your variables. Let's take a look at this visual. When you go about defining your variables, I would say use the letter that makes sense. If I'm talking about pennies and dimes, I would use the letter D and the letter P. If I'm talking about adult tickets and children tickets, use A and C. Sometimes you're making a trail mix, use N and C. When you get to the mixture problems in chemistry, that's okay to use X and Y because you're talking about milliliters of 20% of a chemical. And so it's hard to write, oh, 20%, that's the label. What do I do with this? Just label it X and Y and define your variables as your first step. X will be the milliliters of 20% fentanyl. Y will be the milliliters of 65% fentanyl. Once you've defined your variable, then you can write your amount equation. The amount equation refers to the physical amount. So if you're talking about tickets, adult tickets plus children tickets is the physical amount of tickets in your hand. If you're talking about pounds of trail mix, you have nuts and you have chocolate. That's the physical amount, the pounds of nuts and chocolate. So C plus N would be 30 pounds. If you're talking about pennies and dimes, how many coins do you have in your pocket? I have 14 pennies and dimes. So I'll take D plus P, that physical amount, and make my amount equation. Always look for the number with the correct units that shows the physical amount. Oh, 540 tickets, or 30 pounds of your trail mix, or 14 coins in your pocket. When you're dealing with the chemistry one, you have 270 milliliters of your new solution. And so this is milliliters, that physical amount. You're pouring so much of the 20%, so much of the 65%, and your final solution will be 35% strength, if that's what you want, and of the 270 milliliters. So they give you that physical amount. Usually, the amount equation is just X plus Y equals the total physical amount. Once you have your amount equation, then you can write your value equation. Just like it says, you tack on the value of each thing. So in this problem, adult tickets were $7, children tickets were $2.50, and you earned a total of $1,200. Notice when you're looking in the word problem, you're picking out money, the dollar amount. So 7A plus 2.5C equals 1,200. All of that refers to the value or dollars. Notice you just tack on that value, the value of your X, the value of your Y equals a total value. What about the dimes and pennies? Okay, so you 10 cents per dimes, 1 cent per penny. Maybe you have 233 cents in your pocket. And then when you talk about the nuts and the chocolate for your trail mix, Chocolate cost $8 per pound. Nuts cost $3.50 per pound. And I want to create a trail mix that I can sell for $5.25 per pound. Notice that it's not $5 total. That's not the total amount you're making. You're making $5.25 per pound. So you need to make sure you multiply by the 30 pounds. Over here with the chemistry one, the X represents the milliliters of the 20%. So zero point 0.2, make sure you change those percentages into decimals. So 0.2X plus 0.65Y equals the strength of the chemical. What is that value? I need a new solution that's going to be 35% strong. So the value on the right side of my equation will be the 0.35 of the total 270 milliliters. Notice the ones dealing with money, you just have one total money. But the ones dealing with pounds of trail mix or milliliters of a solution, you have a strength and the milliliters. You have a cost per pound. So that's the only difference here when you're looking at writing your value equation. I'd like to look at a few mixture problems and try to write out the two equations. Let's figure out how to set these up. Number one, a farmer has two types of milk, one that is 24% butterfat and another that is 18% butterfat. How much of each should he use to end up with 42 gallons of 20% butterfat? Okay, let's go through our steps. Step one is define your variables. Okay, he has two types of milk, a 24% and an 18%. So let's say X equals gallons of the 24% butterfat milk. Let's say Y equals the gallons of the 18% of the butterfat milk. So X is pouring that 24% and Y is pouring that 18%. How much of each should he use to end up with 42 gallons of 20% butterfat? Notice these are the end totals. How can I write my amount equation? So step one, define your variables. Step two, write the amount equation, the physical amount that I need of each piece. Well, I'm going to take the gallons of the X milk plus the gallons of the Y milk, and that will be the total gallons, which is 42. So the amount equation is X plus Y equals 42. After you have your amount equation, then you can write your value equation. The value is just tacking on a value to the X, the Y, and the 42. Remember, we defined X to represent the 24% butterfat, so make sure to change that into a decimal, 0.24X. The Y represents the 18% butterfat, so 0.18Y. And we want a 20% butterfat in the end. And so that will be the value of the total value. So 20% butterfat, 0.2. And we already know we need 42 gallons. We're asking how many gallons of each do we need to make 42 gallons total. So we can put that 42 there. In the next video, we'll go ahead and solve some problems, but I just wanted to get some practice setting up those two equations. The next step would be solving by substitution. So you just take the amount equation, substitute it into the value, and solve for your two variables. Number two, a store owner wants to develop a new snack mix by mixing cashews and raisins. The cashews cost $6.50 per pound, and the raisins cost $4 per pound. How much of each should be used to obtain 40 pounds of a snack mix worth $4.75 per pound? All right, are you starting to see the pieces? Step one, define your variables. We're talking about raisins and cashews. So we'll just let C represent cashews, and R represent raisins. And now let's dive into writing the amount equation. The amount is the physical amount. So cashews plus raisins equals 40 pounds. That's the physical amount. I need a total of 40 pounds. Now let's tack on a value to each piece. How much are the cashews? The cashews cost $6.50 per pound. So 6.5 times the cashews. The raisins are $4 per pound. So plus 4 times R. Notice using C and R when we're done solving, we don't have to say, oh, what was that X again? We can say, oh, C equals whatever. I know that means pounds of cashews. And then the total is 4.75 per pound. So $4.75 per pound. So you've got to make sure to put that 40 in there. Awesome. Then you solve by substitution. So you substitute the amount into the value and solve for both. Let's try a couple more. Number 3, the cost of a ticket to the circus is $25 for children and $50 for adults. On a certain day, attendance at the circus is 2,000, and the total gate revenue is $70,000. How many children and how many adults bought tickets? So, step 1, define your variables. So, C will be the children tickets. Children tickets. The variables are talking about the physical amount of tickets, and A will be the adult tickets. Now we can go and create our amount equation, the physical amount. So C plus A. What is the physical amount of tickets? The attendance was 2,000. So 2,000 tickets were sold or in hand. Okay. So equals 2,000. Now, are you starting to get the hang of this? Tack on a value. How much were the children's tickets? $25 for children. This must be a really good circus. And $50 for adults. So plus 50 times A. And their total revenue was 70,000. This is the total, so we don't need to multiply that by anything else. It's not 475 per pound, or like we saw in the first one, 20% for each gallon. Okay, let's try one more. A man has 26 coins in his pocket, all of which are dimes and quarters. If the total value of his coins is 455 cents, how many dimes and how many quarters does he have? Once again, step 1, define your variables. So D will stand for the number of dimes he has, and Q will stand for the number of quarters. Then you can write your amount equation. The amount equation will be the physical amount of dimes plus quarters. And it says he has 26 coins in his pocket, so that'll be 26. And now tack on the value. Dimes are worth 10 cents. So be careful if we're dealing with dollars, then we'd put 0.1 and 0.25, but the total is in cents. So just leave everything in cents. 10 cents per dime plus 25 cents per quarter equals the total of 455 cents. That's the hardest part to these word problems, is setting up these two equations. Once you get this system down, you've got it. So in our next video, we'll solve by substitution by substituting the amount equation into the value equation and look at the process of how to get the answer. I hope this was helpful. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.